You're welcome to the Economy and Politics Show. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. This edition will discuss socio-economic pressures and options for Nigerian households. And my guest joining me virtually is Mr. Gospel Obele, CEO, Streetnomics. Nice to have you, Mr. Gospel, after a while.
Thank you very much for having me. It's really great to speak with you again.
Thank you very much. Let us begin with a major takeaway from the recently published Pro-Share Analyst Note assessing the first year of the President Bola Tinubu's administration. It observed that the various initiatives rolled out to support households good, but have not yielded the desired expectations. From your perspective, what is responsible for this? What are the lessons and the way out?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, I agree that there's been quite some, initiatives that have been rolled out to support, Nigerians and also, sectoral stakeholders within the cost of living, inflationary prone exchange rate, and all that environment. I guess you'd say that it hasn't sufficiently delivered, and that's because already it hasn't delivered what it was expected to, and that's because to a large extent the many interventions that are weaved at best are addressing the welfare situation. All right. And that welfare situation is to a very large extent still hinged on the fact that you have major, intricate structural issues that are impacting on the everyday existence or living of the Nigerian. So, take for instance, you're trying to distribute $50,000 naira, to the average household in Nigeria. But also, that in itself, the outcome of that is further threatened by the fact that food prices are constantly rising. All right. So, the pace at which food prices are constantly rising, the pace at which the exchange is worsening, the pace at which cost of living crisis is worsening, is almost exponentially, faster than the interventions that are being rolled out. And secondly, the interventions that are being rolled out does not really solve the problem at the root cause. All right, they may help to alleviate the pain. All right, but it doesn't still solve the problem. It's like when you have a bruise on your body, for instance. If you don't treat it, it can't get healed. All right, if you just put the plaster on it, it may even get worse. So, in as much as these initiatives are okay, they are best necessary condition based because they are necessary to have, they are nice to have, they are nice, they need to have. But at the very much sufficient level, we'll be dealing with the structural dynamics, providing heavyweight sector landslide interventions that will deal with the core root causal elements of the cost of living crisis and all that. And in many cases as well, some of these interventions are rolled out were not rolled out in a very structurally intelligent manner that helped to support the critical mass. So if you take, for instance, the UK did something similar, where they rolled out the cost of living fund, but that solution was delivered through a charity-based network to support people at the grassroots level. All right, so not necessarily trying to hand over cash support to people, one-on-one. So these are the many reasons why I think that in as much as those reliefs or programs are necessary, they weren't sufficient in context to deal with the deep-rooted structural issues that were in the first place informing, the situation that we're in to start with.
Very well noted, Mr. Gospel. I hear what you've said about the need for sector intervention programs and also having a very structurally intelligent approach to it. I mean, when you look at all the plans rolled out from the renewed Hope conditional cash transfer, which you just mentioned, and even the plans like the compressed natural gas conversion, which is supposed to address the issues of subsidy, PMS removal, down to even additional plans, the consumer credit scheme, which is taking up now and we want to see the impact. The key word is having a very structured approach, and that is what we expect. Now, what you've said delves into what several economists and analysts have called for a comprehensive economic reform implementation plan. What is your position on this? Because at this time, this is what is the consensus amongst them.
Top of mind, the plan is required to get us out of this situation. You can't really pull a country out of a dire state or a state of dilapidation, so to say, without a plan. So I would agree that, top level, a plan is required, but to a very large extent, it's really not going to do anything different. I mean, it's what you have during the ERGP. the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan during the 2016 to within 2016-2018 block. So you had during the needs assessment, Vision 2020 transformation agenda. So we've had plans, all right, and it's also requires us to elevate the conversation beyond just plans. See, I'm an economist as well. I agree with that submission, but I think again it's necessary but not sufficient. So at a sufficient level will be that assessing the level of political will, economic independence as a nation. We actually doing the things we need to do. To put it as a layman statement like that. All right. So even if you have a plan right now, a plan does not necessarily mean the economy will be better off for it. All right. So as much as a plan is required, I would not focus too much on the plan. I focus too much on the institutional and political will elements around driving reforms. And this conversation have been on for decades, on and off, development plans. And I think that is the major thing that's lacking here. The cultural and behavioral elements that keep crippling the Nigerian economy and, creating a worsening state of living for the Nigerian people is what should be addressed at the core, which I think a plan is not sufficient to do that.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. You said a plan is good as an economist, but very critical at the core is the need for institutional reforms and even political will, that political consensus. And of course, you are aware also that there's been talk now by the Senate Committee on Banking, looking at the Central Bank of Nigeria Act 2007. That's something that we will discuss further in the days to come, to also get your perspective amongst others. But from what you've said, what should be the policy focus on trade, foreign policy, and blue economy? Just those three to support the policy actions from the core fiscal policy side, because I believe that those are areas that really need to come to speed.
Yeah, I think in the very ideal sense, they are all very linked to one another. And I say that because we still don't have a functional national trade policy. What I mean functional national trade policy, I mean something that is really intelligent, that captures all of our comparative advantages and how we plan to take that to market from a value process or value add perspective. All right. So there is nothing right now on ground. So that's one of the first major, structural challenges we have. Not even having something that strategically encapsulates everything that we have to take to market. Secondly, it's the fact that there is still no one-stop shop, to maximize the non-oil MSME market who are willing and ready to export. All right, so they are willing and ready to export as non-oil sector players, but they do not have they do not know or have the right ecosystem to be able to thrive for export. All right, so you're talking about documentation, talking about financing, talking about standard quality control, just a lot of things, ports effectiveness, and all of those dynamics. So how do you galvanize all of that to ensure that more NMSMEs are being able to export, all right, and being able to export value-add products and services in line with what you have, international. So because you don't have all these elements, you see that we are also falling back on the ESG implementation, and on many, many dynamics. The level of export and export, particularly you have right now in the Nigerian economy on trade, is just based on people that have been able to make the most of failure mistakes over time. But you have a critical army of people who are willing and ready to onboard mainstream, but there is no structure, to support them in that area. And then you want to talk about the services sector, which I think is part of the blue economy, in context. We don't even have a national services policy. We don't even have data on how the services sector is thriving, how young people are engaging the services sector at a point where they are being able to scale value, not just for themselves, but for their local community and the subnational environment within, and as well the country. All right, and how you've been able to export all of that value, to receive foreign exchange, to gain foreign exchange receipts and all of that. So I think, in my opinion, it starts first with having a functional, very comprehensive trade policy that there is outright willingness to fully execute, and there is a strong disregard for that. And I think that's also impacting our position in regards to the Committee of Nations, the economy growing, GDP, cost of living, and the like.
Yeah, I mean, the national trade policy is very key among what other policy experts and economists are talking about. And I think as we continue to raise this, I believe that the Minister of Trade, who also featured assessing 1 year of their government, has talked about the plans. But majorly, Mr. Gospel, just watch out, because the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Economy said they're coming out with a robust economic plan. So we'll be tracking that to see how these all are all linked. But with the challenging macroeconomic indicators, which you've highlighted, Mr. Gospel, from high inflation, even the high misery index, really challenging interest rate environments, the purchasing power of citizens have diminished and are eroded. What are the options for households in this challenging time? I mean, ProShare has highlighted that even down to households affording a meal, savings have gone down. African Policy Institute said hunger, poverty, and dissatisfaction are the key issues that had highlighted this administration's first year and impact on households. It is a ticking time bomb that needs to be addressed. What are the options for households at this time?
Well, to be honest, the options are really getting slimmer and slimmer. I won't lie. The outlook is getting slightly bleak. Again, it's getting slightly bleak because nobody really knows for sure what the government has in mind, with direction. I mean, I also think there's also a show of lack of priority, if you get what I'm trying to say. I mean, then you talk about the economic reform, plan and all of that. It's more about how you want to execute it than telling us you're coming up with a plan to make us feel good. All right. So there have been plans in the past. So for households, I mean, we need to establish that the outlook is really not very, very convincing. But households need to understand that they really can't control the expenses side. As much as you're financially literate, your expenses or your basic expenses are open or are threatened to inflationary and exchange rate dynamics. And in some economies, you're able to put a little bit of management or protection around how that infiltrates into consumer pockets. But in some other economies like Nigeria, it's so volatile that it hits straight up. All right, once there's a slight change in the price of dollar, it hits straight up on the price of the basket of tomato. All right, so you can see how that links up deep into the consumer. So I think that on one end, government has to level up and ensure that there's a price management mechanism to ensure that prices are not going past the level. Even if you go past the level, they are more slowly paid, and all of that. Then secondly is the fact that household needs to prioritize on their incomes. You can't really do much controlling expenses. You have to prioritize on income. And prioritizing income will probably look at, say to say multiple streams of income. Another level will be also upskilling the market where you provide the solutions or where you provide your area of expertise. All right, upskilling would mean that, for instance, a graphic designer who is doing only graphics design work in Nigeria will not get as much pay as a graphic designer who lives in Nigeria but works for a company in Dubai, in the UAE. I don't know if you get it. So you can upskill the market where you're concentrating your efforts as a service provider or as a young person, and you can also upskill the target market for your product and your services and all that. So in many ways, also for businesses, you can also elevate the business models. So rather than trying to, as a food vendor, trying to sell bowls of soups, and you're threatened by inflation, you're trying by the cost of raw materials in my 12 markets, of cost of yam and all those things. You can as well move from that argument to developing a technology product that helps to close access to market gap for food security and all those narratives as the case may be. So there are levels individuals and consumers can shift to in terms of blue ocean and trying to reposition to either serve the market, open new value streams, or completely remodel what they are doing. Right. So if you look at it from an angle of income, it seems more controllable than from an angle of expenses. So trying to contain expenses may not really be within the area of control for many consumers, and which is where many Nigerian consumers also feel the heat the most. So the attention on expenses is sort of chasing. It's just like central bank right now using interest rate to chase inflation. It's like a vicious circle of chase that you can never catch the inflation if you keep increasing interest rates. So you can never really break out from the state of the economy right now as regards personal finances are trying to chase the expenses only. So that's what my top of mind encouragement will be. However, there has to be a significant leap in terms of political will to change the status quo by the current leaders. I mean, as much as it has something to do with the plan is just less than 5% of the whole thing. It's more about the execution.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Gospel Obele, CEO Streetnomics, for this very incisive analysis and the insights you provided. I mean, it's very clear that we need sector interventions that are well thought through and structurally intelligent. We need political will, even as we have the economic reform implementation plan to execute. And also for the households, it's time to upscale. It's time to renew and check up new opportunities of making wealth and changing dynamics in the markets. So thank you very much, Mr. Gospel Obele.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much
for the time.
Really
one of our great experts. And I hope you're learning the old anthem. I hope you're getting used to it.
Well, I'm trying to catch up with the whole thing, but I don't think that's a priority for now for the government.
Yeah, not a priority. No, that's not what we used to say as kids, but we just have to align with this new. Thank you once again.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Your time. Yes. Thank you.
Have a lovely day. Yeah, thank you.
You too. Have a lovely day. Thank you. Yeah. To our viewers, if you want to get further insights on this conversation around the whole developments around the economy and the markets, visit the ProShare website displayed on the screen and follow our social media platforms to engage further on this show. Till we come your way again, enrich yourself with the knowledge of socio-economic developments around you because it is a wise thing to do. I'm Ottoabasi Abasiekong. Thank you for watching and bye for now.